Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the stream. Tonight I am hoping to do some pyrography. Well, I'm not hoping to do some pyrography, I'm going to do some pyrography. So I'm just going to... Okay, what I'm going to be doing tonight is this particular pussycat, which you can see in the bottom left. I've been asked to do this one. So we're going to see how it goes. So we've got a predominantly black cat, which is going to prove interesting, with an upside down V flash on his nose and a white muzzle. If you hear me blowing, by the way, on the stream this evening, I am just cooling down my pyrographic tool because I don't want it to get too hot, which it will do when it's not in contact with the wood. Still a bit warm for what I want to do. I'm just outlining it just so I can see where. Okay, about there, yeah. Just so I can see where I need to work. And so I don't actually lose the outlines as I progress. So at the moment, just a simple outline, nothing fancy, just a faint sort of line, just enough to show me where the edges I want to work from are. It is already penciled in, but the pencil mark will rub off. So just doing this allows me to have a semi-permanent positional mark that won't actually rub off. Okay, right. So although there's a pencil mark on here, I'm still referring back to the reference image. The marks aren't particularly perfect, but they're reasonable. And I can't exactly at this stage do the would be worried about the white areas. I can't really put anything down for them at the moment. I can't outline them because if I do that, I'm setting a tone which I don't want to do at this stage. These areas here, which are going to be very dark or very brown, that's not so much of a problem. Okay, so if there's anybody new to the stream, good evening. What you're looking at tonight is pyrography. We finished carving and painting the rose yesterday, so today we're doing a different art form. Good evening, 3D bloke, and how are you today? Thank you for joining the stream. Doing something different tonight. Well, doing the same as I did last time I did pyrography, but it's a different cat this time. But every picture's its own challenge, so. Oh, that's good. Definitely good. That blocked air hole caught me. Knoxhill, good evening. How are you? It was one that was immediately obvious after the fact. So as soon as you said it, it was kind of like, yeah, that's right. That's obviously what it is. Oh dear. They do their best to annoy us, don't they, airbrushes? So how's the stream tonight? Is it? Are you still getting the? Yeah. Are you still getting buffering, or are we better tonight? Or am I just tempting fate? And that goes around. So just. Oh, there we go, a little bit sort of round there, and then it sort of curves off to there, so just sort of like that. Sorry, kind of laughing at the the breather hole problem. I have had that. Actually, I don't tend to put the cap on all that often these days. I used to do it a lot on the Eclipse, but I tend not to bother. And the TR1 and TR2, the TR brushes, they're side feed, so I tend not to put the thing on at all. I like waffles. Okay, good evening. How are you? And hello, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining. You're looking at pyrography tonight. Switching things about. Finished carving the rose the day before yesterday. Did painting of it last night, which hasn't turned out too bad. And now we're doing something just a little bit different. So this is well, I'll say it's fairly obviously a cat. I don't actually know if it's fairly obviously a cat. I am wondering actually if so I'm just thinking that what I'm just going to do is flip the webcam top for bottom, because I'll be predominantly working with this towards me, so it might actually look better to you guys like that. That way you're looking at, well, sort of looking upside down at the same image I am. Okay. Having a few days off. Well, that's fair enough. But means I'm going to have to find something else to watch tonight then, does it? And I like waffles. Thank you very much for following. And there indeed is your thank you on screen. I'm glad it's a better stream tonight. I think I am going to do. It's always good to get the eyes done first. I think there's something about seeing the eyes that make things look somewhat better on the cat. So I'm just going to outline the highlight. Let's put a little tiny highlight in here, and then we'll get the eyes in. And then I think because this the cat's a lot of fur. Now then, I've got to get these exactly right. otherwise, so it's going to be about there, otherwise he's going to look a bit cross-eyed if the highlights aren't in the right place. Don't know what he's seeing, but somewhat intent on whatever it is. Okay, there we go, that's about right. So now outline the pupils, that way I can get a nice sharp edge. Same as with paint, a lot of paintings and things like that, the eyes are critical to getting a good representation. I hope you're not telling me to shush, I like waffles. That sounds like you're telling Knoxhill, but why does he need to shush? Has he got some secret to reveal? Is that it? This bush is actually, that's a bush. I'm calling it a bush now. I've called it a knife, I've called it a bush, pen. Oh dear. One of these days I'll make up my mind what to actually call these things. I have a tendency to describe them as a pen because that's kind of how you use them. But it seems to be working really well tonight. I've got it turned down to a medium temperature. Which is heating up the wood quite well, and it's going fairly dark fairly quickly. So are you actually getting on with something else? Oh, Canon Bear streaming as well? Oh well, I've missed that one. I find it really hard now that I'm actually streaming to actually watch a lot of other people and actually keep up with things, because I watch some YouTube videos as well, and it's really hard trying to keep up with everything. It's alright when you're just watching, because you can watch 2 or 3 streams at a time, but as a broadcaster it'd be somewhat boring if I just watched other streams on the stream. Actually that might yeah, I wonder how well that'd go down actually. Let's have a stream where all I do is watch other streams. I was just thinking that I can't actually do that because that's against Twitch terms and conditions to actually broadcast another stream. But then I was just thinking, hang on, but they provide the facility for doing that, but tell you can't. Yeah, anyway. Dear. Terms and conditions. You've got to be weird to be able to read them. Okay, eyes are pupils on a cat, or this cat, are really jet black, so I want to get these really as dark as I can. Basically means going over it a few times, and if I can keep that little highlight natural colour, it'll look really white when it's done. Despite the fact that I've got this pen turned down, it's quite hot is this tonight. Now that looks a little bit lopsided. Oh, he's doing some drawing, is he? Yeah, you can host other streams, but that isn't against Twitch terms and conditions because Twitch provide you with a facility. But if I was to host somebody on rebroadcast a YouTube thing, for example, it is, because it says I shouldn't do so without permission of the copyright holder or broadcast things for which I have no control. Anyway, I'm not about to do it, so it was just one of those things that crossed my mind. Contracts and terms and conditions has been part of my work today, and that sort of thing just sticks with you for a little bit. That doesn't look too bad. Let's do the other eye now. She-Devil, good evening. That tends to be what I do a lot these days. About the only time I can watch streams is whilst I'm eating meals. I tend to watch YouTube while I'm having my lunch, and some streamers whilst I'm having my tea. Dear. Better than television though. In the UK we've got Sky Television, which has got several hundred channels on it, and my wife is always going, there's nothing to watch. We literally have access to a few hundred channels, and I can always find something, but because I kind of like watching documentaries and factual programs and programs where you see people actually doing their job, but I just watch Twitch and YouTube these days. Okay. Oops, that's a little bit off. If you're new to the channel and wondering what you're looking at, you're actually seeing pyrography. The literal translation of which is writing with fire, but hopefully there's no fire and there won't be any writing. But practically it translates to drawing with heat, which is literally what I'm doing here. I'm using an electrically heated tool, which is drawing the sap from the wood, and it's actually cooking it. So a little bit like maple syrup, and in doing so it changes colour. The amount of heat applied, or the duration of the heat applied, determines the colour. Now that's dependent upon the wood as well, but in this particular case it's a nice light wood, and we get a nice range of colours. Are you trying to tell us you've got more than one account I Like Waffles, along the lines of like Twitch says you shouldn't? Maybe you don't actually want to tell us. Or are you a famous streamer in disguise? You're slumming it with a creative crowd. So anything in particular nice for tea, She-Devil? I think what have I just had? A minced beef pie and chips, which was quite nice. Always like doing the eyes first on things like animal pyrography pieces. It somehow brings the piece immediately to life. even if it's just the pupils like I've done here. Everybody's famous. There's just not a lot of other people that know it sometimes. Okay, I made a little tiny mistake. I got a little nick here. That's just outside the pupil, which will annoy me, so I'm just going to disguise it a little bit. And now I'm going to just try and blacken these eyes off again a little bit more if I can, or darken them. I don't actually want to go as far as charring the wood, but I do want to make it quite dark. That's really just a case of holding the pen against the wood a lot longer. I'm keeping it moving though, so that I don't actually create a dark spot which I can't match elsewhere. And I'm using a shading tool to do this. It's got a nice flat base which actually helps, a bit like an iron, it keeps things flat. Because actually applying to the heat can cause a texture on the wood. Now in the eyes I don't want a texture at all. I want it to be as smooth as possible, and it looks wet and glossy. So if I use one of the other tools like the writing tip to do this, which would make it darker really easily, I'd get marks which would look odd in an eye. I'd end up with a texture. And as you can see, or possibly see from the reference images, with certainly with this cat and most cats, that their eyes are just one colour. You don't get like you do with a human eye, where you get the multicoloured variation in the coloured part of the eye, the iris. Humans have a black pupil, same as the cats, but the iris generally in a cat seems to be a fairly solid and smooth colour. Makes it easier for pyrography, not having to try and get some of those fancy shapes in that you do with human eyes. It's generally easier to cheat and not bother. Can I bet you pen? Okay. Dear, good evening. Can I bet? Okay, I'll let you you carry on. So I pretend rate tonight. Quinoa and pinto beans. Pinto beans I've heard of. Quinoa is something I am not familiar with at all. She devil. Never heard of it, to be honest. Yes, and you get to be on screen for the rest of the stream. I like waffles, or until somebody supplants you. Me, of course, I hope you're not there very long. You may want them to be there for a long time. Is birdseed. Well, nothing wrong with birdseed. Quinoa. Oh yeah, okay. You can see that's. I don't know. I eat sunflower seeds. They're meant to be birdseed and stuff like that. So, to have a problem with birdseed. Okay, we got that. See if I can get this pupil just a bit darker, because at the moment it's slightly different. and as you possibly can't see, but they are jet black. They're a beautiful shade of shiny black. Ooh. I read that, then I read it a second time for you. And I just thought of something to say back to you there, Cannonbear, and I'm not going to bother. I think I shall leave the comment I was thinking of. Now I'm going to turn this down, blow on the end just to cool it down, and I'm just going to see if let's clean the pen first. Bit of carbon on the bottom. Just going to try and apply a little bit of colour around the eyes, around the pupil. Not a great deal. I just want to just lower it away from the plain wood colour. So just a minor colour change. It's just at the moment just looks slightly dirty really. That's all it's doing. It's just producing a very slight colour. I almost certainly will go back at some point afterwards and during this piece and do some more colouring on the eyes, but for the moment just applying a little bit of shade. Because with pyrography it's all about the differences between the different shades more than the absolute colour or the absolute shade. What I usually try and do right at the start is not establish any particular shade too strongly, apart from the real jet black stuff. That then is just as dark as I can get it really. So that defines the base value of the darkest darks. The lightest lights is the wood untouched, and everything else then just slots in between, but where it slots in between in that just depends on how well the wood changes colour and how many shades you want to use, and just the general relativity between them, because as I've mentioned before, whilst I've been pyrographing, heating wood, is if I make a mistake, I don't have a lot of leeway to do much about it without damaging the surface of the wood. And if I do that, then it might not come out looking particularly well. So generally speaking, if I've made something slightly too dark, the way to get around that is to make everything else around it that should be darker than it darker. So you just lower all the values around it, and then the bit that you made looking too dark actually looks normal. So I generally will start lighter and then make things darker as I go on. So we've now got his two eyes in. I now become a radio personality, do I, She-Devil? Don't quite understand that. I like waffles. But there again, I am concentrating on this rather than on the subtleties of chat. So, we've got the nose of the pussycat. We've got some really short hairs around the nose. And it looks like the swirl is right between his eyes. Swirl is where basically all the hair radiates out from it, so it's literally it's a crop circle if you like, where the hair comes out in all directions around it, and then it goes backwards and away from that swirl point. and looking at it, he's out of a medium length fur. Some really short hair just around the nose, but it very quickly looks to go long as we come up above the eyes. So we've got a nice black nose, so that's going to be nice and easy. So let's just establish a little bit of colour first around here. It's so short I don't actually know whether to try and attempt to put hair marks on it, or whether just to leave it as shaded wood. I can make it quite dark this way, so I can kind of do both. Now if you can see that mark there, it's acting very much like a liquid on the surface, which is kind of what it is. It's the sap, but it's, you get a similar looking effect if I took a drop of water and with a paintbrush and painted it on. Now I don't. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, the cheap, yeah. Okay. Well, sometimes you have to be obvious. He's got a highlight on his nose, right. Now I'm going to put fur in here because the nose I'll try and make smooth, just really dark but smooth, because the nose is completely furless, I think. Yeah, let's do that. So, but these are going to be little tiny hairs. Okay. So let's have a bit more heat for this. I'll do it this way around. So what I'm doing now is using the sharp edge of this shader tool. I'm holding it at such an angle that it's not flat. It's I'm just using the, because it's flat with a 90-degree angle, if you like, at the tip. I'm holding it so the 90-degree angle is actually pushing down into the wood, and that's creating a texture. The texture will resemble fur. What do I use in terms of, well, wood? Generally speaking, pyrography works best on light woods. You can actually do it on any wood, but the darker the wood, the darker the wood. If you were to something like mahogany or ebony, which is a really dark black wood, the difference between the natural wood colour, which is your lightest tone, and the darkest wood colour that you can achieve, short of carbonising the wood, is very tiny. It's a very tiny gap, and so you maybe get one or two shades at most out of something like trying to do it on ebony, which is almost black, and so you'd be limited in what you could do into things like line art type drawings or cartoon style drawing. As you get to the lighter woods, the gap is wider, so you've got the ability to get more shades in, and the lighter the wood, the more gap you've got. This is just this is birch plywood, and a birch plywood is one of the lightest woods. I actually have got some poplar which is even lighter. I've just got that to try. I haven't got it cut to size yet. These are I buy these pre-cut to this size and shape. They make good, little plaques like this for doing things on. But I also quite like working on A4 pieces of wood. Because they're A4, it's a nice big canvas, and I use hardboard a lot for that. That's quite a brown wood. I will show you an example of that. So it's quite a brown wood, so the range of colours, or the range of tones, is reduced. But since this stuff is relatively cheap to buy, and in actual fact I've got a load of this A4 size for nothing, it makes good practice wood without burning up wood that actually costs money. But you can do it on anything, though. I'm doing it on flat pieces, but you can do it on finished boxes, wood boxes, things like that, jewellery boxes. You can do it on any sorts of things, really. You can actually do pyrography on paper. It's on this thin paper. It's quite hard to do because it's so thin, and it takes the heat so quickly that you burn through it. Literally, you carbonise it and you burn through it. But if you do it on thicker paper or card, for example, then you can get almost as many shades as you do with the wood. After all, it is just a wood fibre, of course, this paper. Now I'm trying to be really light here, and I'm basically only getting a couple of shades, and I'm burning it very easily because the paper is so thin. I hope that's what you meant by that. Yes, to your second question. I do artwork because I like art and I enjoy making the pieces. So yes, I'm doing them for fun. I have done them for for family and people who have asked for pieces or for presents and things like that. But other than personal pieces, I am quite happy to sell items that I've done, or even people, if they wish to commission pieces, they're quite welcome to do that. Although it's that they're not 50p piece. A commission isn't 50p, if you see what I mean. There's quite a lot of work goes into it, and if you stick through the streams on this is probably going to take at least a week to do. So there's quite a lot of work in them. Yes, Wolfgang Girl, indeed, it's a pussycat. I actually seem to do a lot of pussycats, for no particular reason, because they're probably one of the most time-consuming pieces, or a furry animal is, to do it in the style that I'm doing it, which is to apply a texture to the wood so that it actually looks like cat fur. I'll show you one that we did a little while ago. So that that, for example, is another pussycat. It's a different cat, in case you were wondering, and all of this, as you can probably see, looks like fur, and in person you can actually see the fur, although it's not a one-for-one mark to do with an individual cat hair, but it gives you the general impression of fur on the cat. I have had suggested that I might do a lion next time on stream, with the full mane and everything else, and we shall have to see. Right. As I mentioned with a cat, there's a swirl. It's the centre. It's the centre where all the fur comes from, and everything else sort of radiates out from that on his head and kind of like on his body as well. So now that generally occurs just right here in somewhere around the centre of the nose, between the eyes, or sometimes just above it. And on this area of the cat, the fur is extremely short. So what I'm doing with the tool is essentially drawing individual lines of fur, and so what I'm doing, because the hair around here is extremely short, I'm actually using really short strokes with this tool, and that then will it'll look more natural. It'll look like it's supposed to look like. It's one of the tricks that you get with sort of almost any art form, whether it's painting or whether airbrushing, pyrography. When you're doing things like textures and copying whatever would be in real life for something, you move the tool in the direction of the fur, for example, or the way something is flowing like a river, and that way you get the right reflections and you get the right look of the piece. If I was doing the fur here and I was just doing it in all sorts of directions, afterwards it would look really would look unnatural. Oh, that sounds an interesting picture. Was it a full face type one, or sort of a distance type shot free? I mean, there's kind of two. When you're talking about animals, there's kind of two methods that seem to work really well for pyrography, and that is close-ups like this, if you like, which you fill the frame with the face, because the face is usually the most interesting part. Or it's if you're talking about lions, it's the savannah, or it's a fairly wide shot with, so you see the whole animal and it might be looking towards you, but you're doing it on a fairly large canvas. Yeah, waffle. Yeah, I get what you were doing, but first, well, this technique that I'm doing, particularly here, creating this texture, it's only the second time I've actually done it with fur. I always did fur a different way, and this particular tool is a new one that I got. It arrived just before I did the last piece that I showed you a moment ago, and so I was kind of experimenting with it on a practice piece of a railway engine that I was doing, and I discovered that it made these extremely fine lines if I held it like I am doing now. So this is supposed to be a shader, but I'm using it more like a knife. But a knife actually wouldn't produce the same texture as I'm getting out of this. And I tried it on the pussycat, and I was really pleased by it, and I'm just basically trying it again here, replicating what I did then. So it's going to prove interesting. I hope this actually comes out as well as the other one did. So we've kind of got the swirl in there. Ooh, those cats are fast. I'm surprised. Either he had a really long lens or he's really fast. Mind you, if you've got a lion coming after you, you don't tend to hang about, I don't think, do you? Yeah, but that was a once in a lifetime photograph. Yeah, you get the photograph, but that's your lifetime. Yeah. I'm just thinking the stream looks a bit dark. I don't know how it's coming out at your end. Well, if they get too bad, there's always something called a ban button. Take that how you wish. I'm looking at this on the feedback, and this area in the middle looks really dark, and yet it's. I think the camera's just not dealing very well with the contrast, because the eyes look really dark, and this looks almost the same. But when I'm here in person, there's a significant amount of difference between the two. Yeah, that's right. I'm always somewhat intimidated when I start doing cats, because I never quite know where to start, and I end up just starting and just carrying on, and they just appear. But there's always oh god, where do I start when I look at a cat? So they're gonna come up. Okay. So once we get near the top of here, we can start lengthening the hair. Okay. Now this cat's got some white streaks in, and amongst the black fur, especially as we get into this sort of area towards the eye that's on the left. So probably what I'm going to do with that is do some of these, do some of that afterwards with a knife and a cold knife, that is. Yeah. Since the first one of these I did, I'm just gonna try something with the camera. The first one I did seem to be, the on stream seemed to be a lot better. Let's just try. Let's force the white balance as well. Let's let the camera adjust the brightness for a while. See if that helps. I've got something like 100 watt light, 150, sorry, a 350 watt uplighter next to me. And it doesn't seem to be throwing as much light down. I will have to see about getting a small LED spotlight, I think, to shine down on the desk. Oh, well, the stream may be cool at your end. I like waffles. It's not so cool at this end. Temperature in the studio here is nearly 24.5 degrees Celsius, which is close to 80 Fahrenheit if you measure things in those scales. And I've got a relatively low power but quite hot tool just under my finger, so cool is not the thing that comes to my mind at this time. I have seen people do this with actual fire, with a blowgun. Not this particular picture, but pyrography in quite a few videos on YouTube. But they're generally, when you're using a tool like that, you're generally talking about several feet by several feet as the canvas, so to speak. Bubbles Demonkey, good evening, and yay, everybody da. Are you tattooing the wood? No. I am cooking the sap which is in the wood. Fiddlestein. Tattooing would be driving ink into it with a needle, which you could actually tattoo wood. The ink, if you kind of could, it would be difficult, because generally what tattooing does, of course, is they drive a needle through your skin whilst the ink is on both the needle and your skin, so that they're effectively driving ink through your skin to the layer underneath. Bubbles the Monkey, thank you very much for the follow. I greatly appreciate that. Now you have now substituted your name on screen for the gentleman that was there before, so hopefully, I'm going to say hopefully your name doesn't stay there too long, but it would be nice if it's there for a little while. So it's not exactly like tattooing in that respect, because if you tried ink on the wood, you would stain it. But if you actually were, just had a dot of ink, if you like, on the end of a needle and you dropped it, you dabbed it in, then effectively yes, you're sort of tattooing, but really you're doing like what the newspapers would do, which is just putting a single drop of ink onto the surface of the wood. And you can create pictures like that quite well. I mean, that's literally how newsprint was or is, in that it's dots, wider spaced and narrower spaced, to create the different shades. Could you burn the sap in your skin? You don't have sap in your skin. It doesn't work the same way. Doesn't work the same way. That's actually not strictly true. You sort of could do it, but on live skin, of course, what happens is you create a blister. So you get the cells themselves just burst, basically, ultimately, but you get the plasma out of the blood, which creates a blister to protect the area. So it kind of doesn't really work that way. But if you take something like leather, or even, I suppose, dried animal skin, you can get a similar sort of effect. It doesn't quite work the same way. What's rather judgmental? Lots of people call you a sap. Well, that's something lots of people have a problem with, but you're not in my skin, so I can't burn you in my skin. That would be weird. You have to make good puns, if there is such a thing. We've got some white fur just around the corner of the eyes. I'd like to try and keep that, so I'm just going to leave that area for the moment. I will add a little bit in just to darken it down, because it's not actually white when you look at it. There's that much black mixed with it that it's toned down. So that's where the rest are. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is do some of the fur, which this mark here really is the outside of that V, inverted V that the cat's got on his face. So what I'm going to do is do some of the outs away from this before I bring this up to meet it. And the fur here is quite long, so I can make longer strokes. That white area obviously is a distinguishing mark, so one of the things that if you're doing you're doing a piece which is of a pet or something like that, things like the eyes and the distinguishing marks are the things that make it look like the pet that you're after, because the basic structure of many cats' faces is very similar. They do have, like this other one, for example, these two cats. This one, which is Junior, has got a relatively pointy face compared to this particular cat here. This one isn't as pointy, partly because of the angle. This one is kind of a slightly more three-quarter profile. This is more of a full face on profile, so you don't see that angle quite so much. But the facial marking, that prominent marking, is basically You know, the owner who looks at something like that immediately recognises their own pet because of that marking. So it's quite important to get those. Which one? Alula Striker, thank you very much for joining. 0101. Yeah, this is one of our cats. This one is Junior. He often comes and sits and watches the stream, and occasionally even tries to join it. Luckily, he's not been too persistent whilst I was doing carving last week or earlier this week. But he has a habit of wanting to come and just sit on my lay on my knee, which is obviously just off the front of the desk here. It's not too bad while I'm doing this, but when I was carving, it was a bit awkward. This particular cat here is called Felix, the archetypal name for a black and white cat, or at least in England, which I suspect comes from the old cartoon, the old black and white cartoon. That Fiddlestein, that kind of looks like it should be a pun, but I actually don't know. It looks more like French. So I don't actually know quite whether you were intending to be funny there or you were asking a serious question, and if you were, I don't know. Maybe I'm not reading the text the way you intended it to be read. And I now have to relearn that with this, something I learnt on the last one. Using pyrography, usually I'm working really fast. Well, I'm moving the pen really fast because if you keep it in one place for too long, you get a dark mark. You generally don't want a dark mark, you want an even, consistent tone. And so I have a tendency to move the pen quite fast. But this particular technique works better if you move it fairly slowly. And I keep forgetting that. Even whilst I'm doing it, I'll keep forgetting it. I can turn the heat up, and I have done just a little bit, but I don't generally like working with high heat because you have to move fast, and it's very easy to get too dark a tone than you're after, and then you've got to work around that, which just causes more difficulty. But so I generally prefer working with lighter temperatures or cooler temperatures. That way then I've got more control, because with this it's additive. I can keep going over and over and over if I want it to get darker. Okay, on profile. Oh, I see. I see. I didn't know that. I don't see. Yeah, maybe. I'd never really thought about it. It isn't actually a term I've come across even in doing people. So. Now I'm trying around here not to actually be. The line is a guide just to say the difference between the black and the white, but I'm trying not to follow it too religiously. I kind of want the transition between the two to be somewhat ragged, and you know, the fur overlaps each other. It's not a perfect line, so. I'm sort of starting a stroke at all sorts of distances from this particular mark that I've made to distinguish the edge of the flash. I will sometimes just dot all over the image, doing bits here and there just for my own amusement really. There's no set order of doing anything. Some people like to work from lightest to darkest tones. Other people like to start in a corner and just work from there. It doesn't fantastically matter. It sometimes can, especially if you're going for really dark stuff, it can sometimes help maybe to do those last, because as you get towards carbonising the wood, if I'm running my fingers over here, for example, I can smudge it a little bit, but and if I want to keep something pristine wood, then if I can avoid doing anything around it at all, because you pick up dirt and stuff on your hands and it gets into the wood, but there's no particular reason to do any bit more than any other. I generally like to do the eyes first, because that, well, it just kind of makes the thing come alive before you start. It's surprising, Bubbles to Monkey. You just do. It's surprising how much patience you get when you're doing something like this. I tend to like techniques which give me an instant result, and what you kind of end up with is, I've got a result. Okay, the result isn't as dark as I want. This does want to go dark. It's looking quite light there, as you can probably see. Compare with the actual reference image, and so I will have to go over. So when I go over again, it goes a bit darker, so I get a result. So it's each time I'm doing it, I'm getting a result, and I'm getting towards the ultimate result, which is the colour that I'm after. I kind of would say as well that if with more experience you can work faster, and as you work faster you can turn the heat up, so you can get there. It's practice makes perfect type of thing. So you can get faster as you develop the techniques and you learn how the wood or the tool is reacting to what it is you're asking it to do. So it's not really a case of patience. In actual fact, it never really comes into it when you start doing something like this. It's my opinion, if you like, that patience comes into it when it's not going right. That's when you have to apply the patience. On the other piece, for example, I could not get the wood to go dark at one point. It just sort of capped out at a middle level, and that's when frustration builds, and that's when you need the patience. Something like this, it's as Freeze just said, you get lost in it, and I'm a little bit more aware of it when I'm streaming, because I'm talking and explaining and answering, and talking to you guys. But if I was doing this off the stream, I can easily spend 4 or 5 hours. I can start doing this and look up, and it'll be 4 hours later, and it just goes. Yeah, as Freeze just said, Freeze said as well, that same thing. It really, time just vanishes. It's don't know where it goes. It's very much like you just get into a time machine and come out, and you happen to have something in front of you that you've been working on for a few hours, and sometimes you kind of even don't realise that you get there. It's sort of I did that on that piece. It was kind of like, I was doing this, and then a bit later I looked at it, and I just finished a bit on the back of it and thought, oh, I've done it. It's interesting you say that, though, Bubbles. I mean, the beat sprites, perler type stuff, which actually interests me, and I might later this year I might actually get around to trying some of that. And it's kind of like you're picking up a thing and putting it down, you're picking up a thing and putting it down, you're picking up a thing and putting it down, you're picking up a thing and putting it down. How on earth do you have the patience to do that? It's the same thing all the time. Gluten-free gamer, thank you very much for following. That's most kind of you. So it's I can ask you the same question. It's a different colour and you put it in a different place, but how on earth do you have the patience to keep doing that? Ah dear. You can. It's daft as it sounds. You can do a form of pyrography on toast. If you take a piece of bread and you put it on something flat, and you actually squeeze it in a pattern or a shape, and then toast it, the shape will come out of the toast. If you see what I mean, it'll be a different colour. So you can put an image onto a piece of toast. It's one of those things. I did at one point see some. You could get like sort of like cookie or press things. So it was kind of like I'd say relief carving, but like a cookie cutter type of thing, but with blunt blades, so it didn't actually cut. So you'd have a pattern of something, a coffee cup or something like that, which you could actually press into the bread, so that when you toasted it, you got this. I can't remember which way whether it got lighter or darker, but the image that you'd pressed into it stood out. And that's another way, actually. Take your toast, toast it until it's really brown. Better if it's not burnt, because it smells like terrible. But then when you got your toast, take a knife, a fairly sharp knife, and as you scrape the surface away, the more you scrape, the lighter it gets. You can actually create an image on toast by scraping, which is not. I can do the same thing with pyrography, and I will to put the whiskers on here, for example. I'll do the whole of the cat, and then I'll take a really sharp knife and I'll actually scrape the whiskers on, which is precisely what I did there. So you could do it on toast. So you could do this sort of thing on toast. I mean, I could actually do a similar thing on wood. I can make the whole thing dark brown and then scrape the wood off to get lighter. It's just easier to do it the other way around. But on something like toast, you could actually create artwork out of toast. You really must have toasted it badly if you managed to hit it with a hammer and it shatter. I love waffles, or I like waffles, sorry. Yeah, bed scraping. A slightly more organic version of the scraper board that I was doing earlier on in the stream last week. See, it's amazing what you can turn into an art form. But the perler stuff, my personal interest is not so much in things like the bead sprites, the sprites. It's more in taking, doing something like, it wouldn't be this small, I guess, but a picture like of the pussycat, and making something that was recognisably this cat when it was complete. But it's a it's what I call a pixel-based art, and I have got a sort of a real interest in pixel-based arts, which I've had for a number of years. It started because I am a licensed radio amateur, so as part of that I got interested in weather satellites a long time ago, and weather satellites send their image down in a technique, it's either called slow scan or it's actually like a fax machine. It comes down essentially a pixel at a time, and I could receive that, and the image builds up really slowly. It's several seconds per line, so I could actually see the individual pixels coming in one at a time of different shades of grey, and they're quite large pixels to fill the screen I was using, and I got really fascinated because of that. And of course, as it builds, you get a picture of the cloud or whatever the satellite was transmitting. And ever since then, I've been really fascinated in it, and I do a lot of other art which is pixel based rug making. You can do things like cross stitch, which is pixel based art, perler and stuff like that. I was busy busy talking and not reading chat. Good evening. No, this one doesn't have that sort of attitude. He's more of a loner. Comes to you when he wants something, but not otherwise. Why can't you wait for college, Waffles? I don't think any of your followers like painting of carvings, Lost. None of them are elected to follow to come back. They might drop in occasionally, I guess, but there isn't that many greys available, is there, Bubbles to Bunky, or do they actually make a special kit of them for grayscale? I think when you take sort of the hammer beads and the perler, and there's another one, there only seem to be about 5 or 6. Mind you, 5 or 6 is enough to create a grayscale. Yeah, I've looked. Well, I've sort of had a look around to see if there is any software to make it easier, but there seem to be quite a few bits of software which really just digitize the image. They just posterize the image. They just make the pixels bigger and give you dithering and stuff like that. But for other reasons, dithering never really looks good unless you're really a long way away. And I think it takes there's a level of skill which you have to employ to say, actually, you know what, they're the wrong colours. Okay, I'll take a look at that one. Thank you for the link, Bubbles. I would prefer if anybody feels like posting links, they ask first, so that you don't accidentally get timed out. But that's okay. Okay, I'll take a look at that. I don't specifically mean just real pictures, if that makes sense, rather than the sort of 8-bit images and things like that. Waffle hype. And I don't know what Noodle Nation. Either that's a takeaway type or a similar place, or it's a streamer. I'm never sure which. Do you stream then, Bubbles? No, it's okay. It's just a general. I mean, the link was appropriate, shall we say? So that's okay. And we were talking. Obviously, the people that just drop in stream and drop links is not necessarily polite, but that was fine. Don't worry about it. So do you stream, Bubbles, or are you just interested in watching other people? Because if you do stream and you stream at a time when I can take a look, and you're doing that particular kit, I'd be interested to take a look. Just around here. The other thing what helps when doing things like cat fur is remembering that which fur is on top of which fur. So whilst I've kind of done this, what I really should do is start at the back and work forward, because if you recall on cats, if you stroke a cat, you're stroking it in the direction of the fur, and you're not ruffling up his fur, and that's because the fur nearest his head lays on top of the fur further back, and so on as you go backwards. So if you do it, if you create the textures from the back coming forward, then you're laying the front textures over the back textures, and it looks natural, and it doesn't look so much as though you've rubbed the cat the wrong way. Which, daft as it sounds, some cats absolutely adore, and others don't. So I've kind of done this one backwards, but the white overlays this, and some of the nose overlays it as well. So I'm kind of, it's not so bad, because the other thing about using this particular tool, shall we say, is that if I now start at the back and work forward, because this needs to be gone over again, I'll reimpose these textures over the top of the fur as I bring it forward. So it's not an irrecoverable thing. It's just a nice thing to do in that way. It helps keep the realism that you're after. Oh, it is a Chinese restaurant, is it? Okay. Noodle Nation is just the sort of thing that could be a great streaming name for somebody. Well, that's so what time zone are you in, Bubbles? I'm in British summertime here, which is GMT +1, so it's coming out for 9:30 local time here. So when would that correspond for yourself? Because I'd like to see that. It's as I say, it's intrigued me enough to to have a look at what it was. Look at the bees, look at the I would say, I don't know if there's hundreds of colours, but there's a heck of a lot of colours available and things like that. Oh, so you'll be fairly, that'll be about an hour ahead of us now, so it must be about 10:30 for you. What let you capitalise your name? I like waffles. I'm surprised. Saturday, Monday and Tuesday. Okay. I tell you what I'm going to do. I will, because I do want to see that, I'm going to follow you. So that hopefully, I generally stop streaming about 10 PM my time. So I should get notified then when you go live, which will remind me, and I'll try and drop in and have a look. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Tiny dagger strokes, 3D here. That's sort of an in reference to do with airbrushing, if anybody wonders. One of the techniques which is really good to learn, well, there's kind of 3 techniques for airbrushing that are really good to learn. There's dots, so being able to spray a dot just where you want it, draw lines from one place to another place without creating a dot on each end, which is a skill in itself. And dagger strokes, and a dagger stroke is where you effectively start with something that's it's conical or it's a triangular shape, but it starts as a fairly wide dot, and then it tails away to a very fine taper, a bit like you imagine a hair would do, if you like. It starts thick at the root and comes out to thin, and that's where you use dagger strokes a lot, is for hair, because hair, you get that sort of texture with it. And that's kind of what's happening here, because as I put the pen down, I'm creating that dark spot, and as I move it away fairly quickly, I'm getting a light thin hair. So I'm kind of getting dagger strokes quite easily, as opposed to on airbrushing, which took several weeks of trying for me to be able to at least get some of them. So Free, do you actually have sheets and sheets of papers of squares and dots? I know I got a load of wallpaper lining paper, and one of the techniques for learning is you draw squares, just ruled lines, so they come out as squares, and then you take your airbrush and shoot a dot at each cross point, and basically do it fairly rapidly. So, and the idea is to hit dead center and to get an even spread of paint. So it teaches you not to tilt the airbrush, but to actually be spraying straight at it. And then the lines exercise is to draw from one intersection to the next intersection and stop. So you create like a dashed line as you go across, and then you come back the other way. It's important to do it both ways, and then go up and go down, or down and up, whichever way you wish, and you can actually end up drawing squares, and that teaches you control of when and to start the paint flowing and when to stop it flowing, so it stops exactly where you want and starts, and to keep the airbrush moving. And then the dagger strokes, which is a different thing. So yeah, kitchen roll's hard though, because it just absorbs the paint and it looks fuzzy. I mean, I got a roll of as I say, lining paper, about 50p, and it's something like about 60 yards long. Now let me catch up a bit on. You don't need to hide bubbles, confidence, go in there. Yeah, check the breather hole in the cap. I have had that happen, and yes, it does really, yeah. For people that may not have realised, that was a problem that Free had with an airbrush, and I have to have one here. What happens is air is blown, if you like, past. I'll simplify this way. Air is kind of blown past a thin hole in the bottom of this cup here, which is what sprays the paint out. I'm oversimplifying that a lot, but it's the actual act of the air blowing past the nozzle which sucks the paint out. If you put something solid over the top of there, like cover it up completely, then what happens is as the air does this, it creates a vacuum in there, and at some point the vacuum equals the pressure that's the air is trying to exert to blow the paint out, and it stops. And the caps that you get to fit on these here have a little tiny air hole in the middle, so that you don't get that. But especially if you shake paint, you mix your paint by shaking it in the airbrush, the paint can go into that little tiny hole and block it. And unless you realise what's happening, it's very similar to having a blockage in the airbrush itself. So you end up taking it apart, looking at where the problem is. You take the cap off, and you can mix your paint, or you wash the airbrush out, you put the cap back on, and the problem keeps coming back. And then when it hits and it's just a little tiny pinprick, you put a pin in that hole, or rub it with your finger, whatever, and then it works perfectly. And I tell you what, and Free's probably thinking the same thing, is you don't half feel an idiot when you realise what it is. Yeah, but I was going to say, once you're up at £35 Free, it's a lot easier to blast that cap into your face, because it don't come out of that hole that quick. Doesn't once it starts bubbling. But yeah, I've never done that. I must admit, I've never blasted a cap. But there again, I don't tend to mix in the airbrush, so that's. I guess I've got away with that one so far. One thing about using this technique is what this is creating is kind of a V shape in the wood, but I'm only really cooking the sap on one side of it. which in itself is an interesting technique, because from the angle that I'm looking at it here, it's darker than if I turn it around and look at it from this angle here, because I'm seeing the other side of the V shape. It's a bit like these 3D pictures that you get sometimes. It's like a Fresnel effect, but it does mean that what I'm going to have to do is come round and go through this piece this way round, and to catch the other side of that angle. Sorry, I'm spinning this round a lot, so hopefully I'm not making you dizzy. So that's, yeah. So I have a tendency to sort of do things like so that's and yeah, and as I'm talking to myself, as I'm comparing what I'm doing against the reference image that I've got. Well, you can see it in the bottom left, but I've got a bigger version on the screen in front of me. As I go, yeah, I need to, and I'm missing out the words that say yes, I need to come down here, but I don't want to get too close because I want to leave at least a little bit of white showing through. So I'm going to do it by, and I've missed out all those words by just going yeah, and I shall try and remember. Yeah. Yes, 3. Yeah. It's one of the reasons I tend to run without the cap off, but I never tend to fill the paint cup. I have a couple of times done the old joke that nobody ever does, which is give somebody a cup and say what time is it in the pot. Nobody ever really does that, but I have done it with the airbrush. I've been holding the airbrush and gone, and I've had paint down my front. Or you're just trying to get in at an angle, and your natural thing is to turn over to, and paint's dribbling out the side of the cup. It's kind of worse on the Infinity as well, because the cup's smaller, but Sorry to everybody. We've kind of as you might gather, Free is an airbrush artist. He streams regularly on Twitch, generally from about 10 o'clock on a night in UK for a couple of hours, and I think you're having a few nights off, aren't you? I think you said Free, but catch Free when he's streaming, because he's a very good airbrush artist. He's done, or has been doing, some really good monochrome work, so things like a Darth Vader helmet in white on black canvas, a xenomorph, for example, and quite a few other things, as well as working with brushes as well for some of his commissioned work. The Rat Pack, I think, is one, isn't it, Free, that you've worked on. But he also does colour stuff like anime characters. He was doing a nice triptych last night. I had to leave. Well, actually, no, I caught the end because you stopped on time, didn't you, Free? I don't quite know how you describe that. It's sort of a tribal stroke fantasy stroke something. I know it wasn't intended to be a face, but it looked like a face with two eyes, two sort of really elongated wide eyes. Not quite sure how you describe it, but it was an interesting thing to see, and so I encourage everybody to take a look next time Free is streaming. But as you might gather with any sort of craft or job or whatever, the people who partake of that craft or whatever, you start to learn a sort of a shorthand. So I talk about things like an infinity, for example, and Free knows what I'm talking about, but you guys have got absolutely no idea. So just to sort of explain it, it's actually a model of airbrush, and that actually is an infinity. It's a model of airbrush made by Harder and Steinbeck, and as I say, the model is infinity. And we, as the people who sort of partake about in it, you kind of learn things like this is a an infinity, it's a bit like the velocities, I think it is, isn't it, for Badger. They are, and I forgot what the Iwata version of it is called now, but they are quality airbrushes, if you like. They're the ones that, if you've got the skill to use them, let you use really fine lines and get some really precision work out of them, as opposed to the other brushes which you can do the same thing with, but they take a lot more skill and work to do. And it's sometimes it's as simple as this. The infinity here, for example, there's a little hole in the nozzle which the paint comes out of. In this one, it is 0.15 millimeters wide. In this one, I think I've got a 0.3 millimeter wide hole in the end. So this one sprays. The spray is a quarter of the size of this one when it comes out of the brush. That's an approximation, but it's a quarter of the size. So, but that means that the precision of the airbrush has got to be, all the internal components has got to be a lot more precise to be able to control that in a way. Because as the smaller the spray, the harder it is to control it precisely. Just because there's less paint coming out of there, a tiny movement can be the difference between some and none. On a larger nozzle, a tiny movement is the difference between some and a bit more. But somebody who has the skill, and Free will probably say things like Drew Blair. I am sure could take something like this, which is an Eclipse, and it's one of the starter ranges for Iwata, who's one of the manufacturers of good quality airbrushes, and there's similar ones for Badger and the others. Can take a brush like this and can do can do better work than I can do with an infinity, and that's just skill and practice. But sorry, that's just to explain the shorthand that we use. And every sort of craft or job tends to do that, and it can be a little bit impenetrable for people who are new to it. And even like pyrography, I'll describe this as a flat shader. The flat bit you might understand, but you might not follow why it's a shader, unless I start to explain it, and I can talk about spoon shaders, and they do a similar but slightly different job. Some things are better for, and if you're not using these things, then to some extent saying a flat shader to you is a bit like saying a chocolate teapot, or I don't know, a two-wheel car. It kind of is a meaningless thing. Junior, yeah, sure. That's Junior. Verified by the stream to be a reasonable representation of him, because he's appeared on stream a couple of times. Well, I mix in paint cups, I don't have that problem. I've actually never really managed to get a good mix in the cup, even bubbling air through it, but I sometimes do that if it's thickening up a bit. Yeah. I forgot what the Iwata one is as well, which is a really high precision brush. But yeah, the drawing skulls on not so much on a penny, but I'm trying to say like a head of a pin, but actually a bit bigger than that. But that sort of size, drawing skulls at that level rather than a penny, which is about the size of an American cent, isn't it? I think, or American penny. But yeah, utterly amazing. And there's I've forgotten the guy who does it now, but there's a guy who uses who does artworks on pens, you know, fountain pens. So he does artwork on fountain pens, and you know, he's using things like the infinity there to do them, and it's utterly amazing. I mean, the size of the skulls you're talking about there, if I recall them correctly, I probably couldn't see them without my glasses on, never mind draw one. I'll just put him back to one side now, if that's okay. We shall carry on with Felix here. There's actually an interesting crossover here between this and airbrushing, as I mentioned during those lines. With airbrushing, if you start paint flowing and then move your airbrush to draw a line, you get a blob or a big dot from which the line comes out of, and if you stop moving before you let go of the paint, you get another blob at the other end. It's a classic mistake that beginners make, and we've all gone through it, you know, because it takes time to learn to develop the technique of moving your airbrush, turning the paint on while you're still moving it at the point where you want it to go, and turning it off but still moving it at the point where you want it to stop, and you keep moving the airbrush, and in doing that you don't actually get those blobs. And the trick is not to make it take too long, otherwise you get a tapered line, but it takes a bit of skill to develop, and I've got to do the same thing here, because if I just put this down and draw away from it, I get a dark blob at the start and then it tapers off, and if I stop before I lift it off, I'll get a dark mark at the end, and you can't really see it, but I'm seeing little dots here, which means that I am forgetting my technique and I'm starting and stopping before I lift off. So I've got to remember to effectively land this like an aeroplane, do a touch and go and take off again, and in doing that I don't get the blob either at the start or at the front, at the end, but I do have to be very careful still not to stop every line in the same place, because if I do that, just the shading effect means it's like drawing a line with a pencil, which you don't get the blob effect, but if you stop in the same place every time, you get a dark mark if you try and go over it, because it's every line ended in the same place. When you go over it again, you've added to the overlap, and you effectively darken that little tiny overlap area, and it looks like a line. So what you have to do is to sort of make lines of various lengths till you make your edge ragged, and that way when you go over it again from from a different starting point, it blends in a lot better, and you don't end up having to deal with this overlay which has created a thick band. I actually find it amazing how so many techniques actually cross over between various art forms. And I'm working too fast again, I have to slow down. I also have a tendency while I'm talking to try and use the brush or use the pen at the speed that I'm talking at. Air on, paint off, air off. Yeah. And keep it moving while ever the paint's on. Yeah. Red Bull. If it doesn't keep you weight loss, it's just expensive sugar. You might as well drink fizzy water. which you can get for about great big bottles for about 18p in the supermarket. I do that and mix it with squash, so I end up with like fizzy orange or fizzy lemon or whatever, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying the proprietary stuff. Doesn't work for Coke, of course, but yeah. So I'm just working my way backwards down the nose here. Still trying to keep, at least at this part here of the nose, keep the right angle for the hair. As we start to come down this bit of the nose here, it tends to come in a curve. It does the fur, so you can just about see it on the reference image because he's sort of black and he's got sort of like a salt and pepper effect, but it sort of curves downwards and away. So the nose, you get like a sleek effect down the side of the nose, but just up around here, it's still fairly radial from this point. Oh yes, Schlur, like that stuff. So does my wife. She drinks the whole bottle in sort of one sitting. I was about to say one go, but yeah, Schlur's nice. Especially if you've got the non. I think there's an alcoholic version of Schlur as well. That's a for those people that may not be familiar. It's kind of a fruit flavoured, fizzy-ish drink. Comes in green bottles, green conical shaped bottles, if I remember correctly. Okay, this fur is going down, at a medium tone. It wants to be a lot darker, basically as dark as I can get it, like it was on the on Junior that you saw earlier. But I'll do that in multiple stages. Partly because it's easier to do in multiple stages. But if you look at the reference image, this side of his face here is really, really dark. But up here, where the light's shining on it, you've got a lighter patch, and just across here. If I do this in stages, what I can do is do this to that point, then leave it and do this again, and it'll go darker, and I won't actually have to consciously try and make it dark. It just kind of comes by accident to some extent. You get that just by going over it again, so you're not having to sort of try and balance things out. You just, by doing it in layers almost, you don't do that bit, you do that bit. Plus, in actual fact, his fur, looking at it, is brown, not black. So it looks black just because it's against the white. So again, if I don't go too dark across here, that will show up as well. I'm sure you'll enjoy the other type, even if you have picked the wrong one up. Lost. I can't actually. I'm sure there is, but I can't actually remember whether there's an alcoholic version of it. It's a light alcoholic one, even if it is, but it's not. But that Schlur stuff is nice. You'll find you can easily drink the bottle and not share it. Especially if you make it cold. It's good. Keep it in the fridge, or at least put it in the fridge for several hours. Never tried it with ice, but it's a lot nicer cold, as most fizzy stuff is. I'm not sure you can see it. I was going to say you can sort of see the banding effect that I'm getting because of the overlay effect I was talking about earlier, so I've got to be just a little bit careful to avoid that. It's not too hard to correct. It's just going in between the bands and darkening them down, but it's easier if you can avoid getting them to start with. Because it just saves you the extra work, and the fun is making the piece, not going back and correcting your mistakes. And if you were trying to do this commercially, then of course time costs pennies, or well, pounds, but in the UK, but time costs money, and so if you can avoid doing something, doing a job twice, then that's what is good to learn. Okay, so about there's about the limit of that. Just trying to judge the points at which the fur starts changing its orientation, because despite the fact you've got the swirl here, there's on this particular cat, the fur down the side of the nose here is very much up and down, even though it's away from the swirl at this point here. It's not particularly obvious that there's a horizontal lines coming away from here, so it's turning fairly quickly to go both ways. Sorry, I'm just catching up on stream. Yeah. Oh dear. There's some similar bottles to Schlur. I've forgotten the make now, but they make some very nice flavoured water, and they also do cordials, which is of course dehydrated water. It's to be watered down afterwards, and the bottles are almost identical, and we used to buy quite a few, and if you accidentally buy the cordial version, the first time you pour it out, if you pour it out, that looks a bit thick, and you take a drink and it's extremely sweet and syrupy, and so when Lost says she's hanging a washing out, it actually means she's running to the shop for alcoholic beverages. Okay, remember that code in the future. Different people work this in different ways. You'll notice here I'm rotating the piece rather than rotating my hand. It's easier for me to work this way. Other people may find it differently, but by doing this, what I'm employing is my arm to create these lines with, rather than my fingers. It's a little, so I've got like a pivot point on my elbow, if you like, so I'm doing a swing like this, but I'm doing it in short movements. It takes less effort, shall we say, for me, rather than moving my hands, and by moving, and I can keep the same angle and keep the tool in the same position, and just move the wood around, which I can then control with my other hand. So I'm kind of load sharing. different people work different ways. There's no right way and no wrong way in any of this. It's all whatever's the easiest for the person that's doing it. And kind of like, if it works for you, don't let anybody tell you really you're doing it wrong. Okay. So we're getting a nice start on the bridge of his nose there. Chilnanigans, good evening and welcome to the stream. I'm guessing fair enough is in reference to my don't let anybody tell you you're doing it wrong. I trust you're enjoying what you're seeing. If you're not sure what it is, and I've just realised I forgot to change my stream title, this is pyrography, creating images with heat on, in this case, wood, although plenty of other materials are available to do it on. I've seen it done on leather, particularly card. It can be done on, it gets done on bone. It can actually be done on ivory as well, although of course ivory these days is a prescribed material, so basically you can't do it on ivory because you can't do anything with ivory. But sailors a long time ago used to do a form of pyrography on ivory using hot needles, which they heated over a little spirit burner on ships, because you don't want a lot of fire on the ship, and they did it in bone, and it gets called scrimshaw, if I remember correctly, and it's literally black. It's all black, and they create the pictures in the ivory, again just using the hot needle. And there's some really lovely stuff which is done that way. So I'll come down here. So again, I'm doing the talking to myself and only saying certain words. I am just judging where the fur comes down in an angle here, in a curve, and this is the transition between the black and the white. And I'm just judging the right place at which I want to start what I'm doing here, because again the fur comes down and changes direction. And just below there, so I'm looking at the reference image. The bit I'm seeing as kind of where it stops for the moment is just below this little bump here, which is actually just black fur, so it's about this position here. So now, having said before I was working with the curve of my arm, I'm kind of working backwards at the moment, so I'm using my hand to do that. And it's actually quite difficult to work a reverse curve once you're used to doing it the other way. So it's a matter for practice, but what we're just going to do is turn the wood around, and then I can work the curve in the right direction. One thing that's with using this particular pen and using it in this fashion, which is using the tip, it's meant to be basically held at 45 degrees so that the flat bit of this flat shader is held on the wood, and you use the full face of it. Because I'm holding it up like this to use the point, the heat which is coming off of here, which is about the sort of heat of a candle flame, is coming straight up into my fingers. And it's like holding your fingers over a candle flame. You don't actually, as long as you do it or not that close. You don't actually burn yourself, but it gets quite hot and sort of it feels like it's burning but you know it's not, type of thing. And that's I'm getting that now, just here. It's one of the things that tends to limit how long you can do this for, because if you are getting heat from the tool into your hand, then you know you can only do it for so long before it starts to get uncomfortable. Luckily this isn't too bad, and I can quite easily go for the length of a stream, but sometimes on some of the tools that I use for this, it does get quite hot, and you either have to take breaks or stop. Little tiny short strokes really here, because that's what the fur actually is at this point. Very, very short hairs, laid very, very flat to the skin. If you ever run your fingers along a cat's nose, past the swirl, but this bottom end here, it's extremely silky, and you won't feel any give at all, because there's basically next to no fur covering the skin. As you come up to the swirl, the hair tends to stand straight up out of the skin, and you can actually feel it kind of bristly. But again, it's next to no give because it's so short. I'm kind of exaggerating it slightly as well here, so that I can blend it in. If I literally did strokes that are as short as the hair should be, if I was doing it in scale, I'd just be touching it and I'd actually create a completely different effect on here, a stippling effect, which wouldn't look as good. Or rather, I'd have to do a lot more work to make it look as good. Of course, another artist might prefer to use that technique and make it look really good without any effort whatsoever, because they've practiced it a lot. And I'm going, ow, I'm having a rest because this is hot. Sorry, I'm not catching it with stream. I'm getting engrossed in what I'm doing. Both I'm drinking. Yeah. Do you do any form of artwork, Childanigans? That sounds like personal experience. No, no one can be Bob Ross. No one is. That bloke did quite a lot for painting, and you know the techniques. No, I'm not that good. Not that good. I have used. Well, I do use some of his techniques because they work fantastically amazing. But I did once have somebody. I was at work, and didn't believe I could do painting at all. So Microsoft Paint, and using his technique, if you like, for creating the mountains and the and snow on them, which is a fairly easy technique to do if you look it up, and you can create a snow scene in about 10 seconds flat. I'm exaggerating slightly, and after that it was wow. I'm looking at it thinking that really is not a good picture, but it impresses some people when you can create something like that in a relatively short period of time, even if it isn't actually very good, because what makes it really special is sort of all the when you start adding the shading and things to a picture like that. But no, thank you for the compliment, but I don't actually believe I'm anything like as good as Bob Ross. I really wish I was, actually. That would be fantastic. Ow. Getting a bit hot. Okay, well, thank you very much for the compliment, Bubbles. Everybody tells, not everybody, okay, quite a few people tell me I've got a soothing voice, or a radio voice, or words effectively saying the same thing. I've even been accused of putting people to sleep. With my voice, not the content, but the voice. It's my natural voice, though. It is how I normally talk, as far as I'm aware. It could be that I have learned to slow down so I don't talk as fast as I would do if I'm not broadcasting. I'm talking to somebody in the room, I will be talking a lot faster. And I think slowing down tends to give your voice a more soothing or a softer sound. And that's something that I learned long while ago now, when I did lecturing for a couple of years. And it helps to have a voice that people can listen to rather than a grating voice. Or it's slow enough for people who are not used to the accent to be able to follow it. But a radio voice. I've also understand it helps to try and keep the ers out of my voice as well. I don't always succeed, but slowing down helps that enormously. I think on my second stream I got actually accused of putting the voice on purpose, or using some linguistic techniques to get people to lull people into staying in the stream. So, is it working? I'm not, in case anybody didn't realise that was a joke. It is my natural voice that I would use actually when I'm lecturing. As I mentioned, it's not quite the same as when I'm speaking person to person, but close enough. Right, well, that's the side of his nose. This bit around here is going to be little tiny, really little tiny things coming down to, and what I'm going to do is just shade his nose, I think, rather than try and put hairs on it. There isn't, of course, the nose of the cat itself, which you hopefully can maybe see on the reference image, but is a leather-like texture because there is no fur on it. It is just the skin, but it's quite it's not soft skin. It's kind of like the skin maybe on your feet, which is like a thicker skin. As I say, I'd often refer to it as like a leather. It's not, but a leather type of feeling on the nose. And just coming away over the top of the nose then is it's almost bald, and the pigment, by the way, of a cat is actually in its skin. It's not the fur per se. The fur does have pigment in it. A lot of the pigmenting effect comes from the skin. So along his nose here, it's kind of bald, just above the leathery bit of the nose, and the fur really only starts up around. The nose is down here, and the fur really only starts around this sort of area here. Yes, I did lost. Completely forgot to do it. I haven't bothered now because I'm about to wrap up, but I'm going to update it just after the stream so that I don't make that mistake for tomorrow. But thank you for mentioning it again, because it's just as likely that I'd forget. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that tool down. I'm going to let my finger cool off because it is quite warm. The tool itself, it's, as I say, it's about the heat of a candle flame, really. It's in the order of just a few watts, maybe 10 watts of power at most. If I turn it right up, probably about 20 watts of power. It's not a great deal. It runs, I've forgotten what this tool actually runs at, but these machines run anywhere between about 1.5 and 3 volts is the voltage they supply to the tip. But they then supply it with anything up to like about 10 amps of current. So that's, you know, if you're not familiar with the electronic mass, you multiply the current by the volts to give you the watts. So 1.5 volts at 10 amps is about 10-15 watts. So it's kind of safe. It's a safe voltage, but it's not safe to touch because it's hot. But even though 10 watts isn't actually a lot of power, it's enough obviously to cook the sap, and it's enough to make it rather uncomfortable. But your light bulbs, most of your light bulbs are significantly hotter than that and more power. I shall turn him around so that we actually look at him the right way around. But I am now a little bit warm. I've been bent over a bit, so I'm going to sit back and just take a rest for a couple of minutes. So if there's anybody that has any questions whilst I'm actually concentrating on chat and taking a drink, I'm going to be wrapping up the stream. So but there's the opportunity here if anybody has any particular questions about pyrography. And Mickey Mouse, thank you very much for following. That's very kind of you. I trust you're enjoying what you're seeing, and thank you for wanting to come back and see more. Desney26 also, thank you for following. You've now taken over the spot on screen. So thank you both for joining and taking a look at what's going on here. I will be doing pyrography for this piece. Will probably take about a week to do. Streams generally last a couple of hours, so it's about 10 to 12 hours worth of work in a piece this size, and with a lot of fur like this. So we'll be doing this for a while before we move on to something, and after this we'll be doing a different form of art. I'm not quite sure what yet. I've got quite a few to pick from, but we shall see when we get there. Do I have a scraper? Yes, I do, certainly. We can quite easily do an art show at this moment in time. I have one piece of scraper board that I can show you, and only one piece. So I will show you the very, very first scraper board project or piece that I've ever done. It was done on stream. I'd never even touched scraper board before this. So be a little kind. But there you go. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a glare coming off the light, but that's not too bad. That's a gentleman called John Miles. He's a musician and songwriter, and he has been in the charts for over quite a many years now. Although he's not played in a band with his band for quite a few years. He now focuses exclusively within the industry itself more than actually as a performer. But he is the musical director and lead guitarist for Tina Turner when she tours in Europe. I don't know about the States. And he is also musical director. He performs in and also organises Night of the Proms in Europe. So but that is the very first piece that I did, and I am really pleased with the shirt. I absolutely find that amazing. And if you'd have been here as I was doing the stream, when I did the mouth, I was extremely worried that I'd made it too bright, and the ear as well, and yet when I've added the rest in, they've just come out just about right. The mouth's still a bit bright, but it's not too bad, and so I'm really pleased with that, especially as it's my very first piece. I'm kind of boasting, really, you know. And I kind of did set it up a little bit to that way, but it's an illustration of the monochrome work that I actually like doing. I love doing monochrome work, whether it's airbrushing, scraper board now as well. That's kind of the ultimate monochrome, because it's black or white and you're just doing it by the shapes that you scrape. And I know you can colour it and things, but just it's an expression of that. And of course the pyrography, which is a monochrome artwork, even though it's not black and white, it's brown and white. But yeah, so that's John Miles and scraper board. And of course carving is the other thing that I've been doing on stream, relief carving. So this is actually a present for my wife, so I'm keeping it fairly it sits on this board and it sits somewhere safe, so I'm just going to put it back so it doesn't accidentally get scratched or anything like that. And thank you for that comment, Bubbles, the Bubbles the Monkey. I'm pleased you think so. I don't think it's quite got to the level of awesome, but I think it's got to the level of damn good. Thank you. Oh, don't worry about the short form. A lot of people call me that. I like Waffles OK. Or Zara usually, which then confuses a lot of people because they then think I'm female rather than male, but it's not particularly a problem. Okay, well, if anybody has any particular questions, you've got a couple of minutes whilst I just have another drink, and then I will unfortunately be wrapping up the stream. I have a little opportunity then to have another drink and see if there's any other streamers around. Unfortunately, Free's taking a couple of nights off, otherwise you'd now find me on Free's stream. But I guess you're taking the whole week off, are you, Free? Or until you feel like it? But follow Free now while he's still in stream. And so when he does actually come on stream, then you can take a look at his artwork, which is amazing to watch. Airbrushing, it's a personal opinion, but I always find airbrushing amazing to watch, because airbrushing tends to get built up in layers, and as the layers get built up, it gets clearer and clearer and clearer as to just exactly what you're producing. And the monochrome work that Free does is a fascinating one. I find it absolutely amazing how and his Darth Vader mask is an example of it, how white paint can look black. You look at it, if you do see a stream, persuade him to show you one of the Darth Vaders, which won't be very difficult. But it's a black background and it's a black mask on a black background, and the background and the mask are exactly the same colour. And the only bits is the white paint, which is used to create the highlights, and the white paint looks black. I can't really describe it any other way. It's a fascinating effect. And I should of course say, since Lost in House has been here, of course Lost is also a streamer and has been streaming in the music category. She's DJ just sounds somewhat anticlimactic, Lost. You're good at what you do. Feel free to describe it if you like, but that's another stream that you should check out as well. And I understand Bubbles also streams, so check everybody out. It's an amazing community. I think is creative, and seeing everybody sort of has a look at each other's work, and it's a friendly community to be in. So I encourage you just to have a look around at any time, and there's quite likely to be something that's worth looking at and remembering for next time. But it's now coming up to 10:30 in the UK, so if there's anybody on stream that would like to know when I go live again, apart from encouraging you to push the follow button so Twitch may tell you, you can also follow me on Twitter. I don't tweet really anything but the fact that I'm going live, so you'll get notified of that way. But generally speaking, I am streaming, give or take personal reasons, 7 nights a week from 8 PM British time, which is 7 PM GMT, and to give you a quick way of calculating, it's 2.5 hours ago from whatever time it is where you are now. And I generally stream until around about 10 o'clock. I've gone on a little bit later tonight, and then sorry, I've completely lost train of thought. But I generally stream until 10 o'clock at night, a couple of hours, which is quite a lot of work to do in one go on some of these pieces. 7.5 hours on Child of Light. You see, Waffles, I mean, you were talking earlier about patience. Well, you probably realise when you stream for 7.5 hours, it just goes. It was when we were talking about it on stream earlier, and I looked at the time. It was 9:30. I've been streaming for an hour and a half, and it just we're gone there. What kind of technical computer mainframe computer maintenance things? We could get into technicalities of it, but it was teaching people who maintained small mainframe computers how to go about doing it in the configuration that they were using them. Okay, so thank you everybody again for following. That followed me this evening, and for those people that already follow, and for just generally dropping in, having a watch and chatting stream, and hopefully I'll see you all again tomorrow. Bye bye.